Now, the capture of the Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro by U.S. forces has set off protests elsewhere in Latin America, notably in Colombia. Shortly after the raid, U.S. President Donald Trump accused the Colombian President Gustavo Petro of producing cocaine and threatened military action against his country. But now Trump has invited Petro for talks at the White House.
Protests on the streets of Bogotá, the result of rising tensions and unrest right across South America. These scenes were personally requested by Colombian President Gustavo Petro. The message is clear. Last Saturday's attack by the US on Venezuela's capital Caracas and removal of its leader Nicolás Maduro were unacceptable, and any genuine challenges to Colombia's sovereignty will not be tolerated.
I'm here because I want to support my country. First and foremost, I'm here to support my president. And if we, the people, don't unite, things will never work out.
You have to be very, very naive to think that the United States can save the people by bombing them. It's something that concerns us all. And the answer is clear. The people are out on the streets.
Yet there are some who fear their own president may go the same way as Maduro.
They're going to take him away. That's logical. They're going to take him away.
These scenes follow months of escalating tensions between the US and South America that rapidly spiraled into explosive attacks on Venezuela and the seizure of their leader. On Sunday, Trump said a similar operation in Colombia sounds good to him, a prospect Colombia is taking seriously. Colombian officials have spoken of a potential humanitarian crisis across the region. Colombia's porous 2,000-kilometer border with Venezuela already makes it the #1 destination for refugees. Petro, who has been labelled a drug baron by Trump, sought to ease US tensions on Wednesday. In a call with the White House, Petro agreed to a face-to-face meeting with Trump in Washington in the near future.
Peace is found through dialogue. And that's why I accept President Trump's proposal to talk. I also spoke 2 days ago with the current president of Venezuela. We want to establish a tripartite dialogue, and hopefully a global one, to stabilize Venezuelan society.
With tensions as they are, it will take more than protests to reassert calm and control across South America.
Elizabeth Dickinson is the Deputy Director for Latin America at International Crisis Group. Elizabeth, welcome to DW. How have US-Colombia relations been in the last years?
You know, in many ways, these tensions are really quite a surprise, particularly for many Colombians, because for the last several decades, Colombia has been by far the closest U.S. ally in the region. The two countries work very closely together on particularly counter-narcotics policy, but also everything from migration to environmental crime to investigating organized criminal networks. And, you know, I think that these tensions really date to the very beginning of Trump's term, when there was a direct sort of confrontation between him and Colombian President Gustavo Petro. Gustavo Petro is an interesting character. He's Colombia's first left-leaning elected leader in many years, and he has been quite a critic of many of Trump's policies, beginning first with migration policy, the mass deportations, again the war in Gaza, and finally the attacks against speedboats accused of carrying drugs in the Caribbean. This latest, I think, back and forth is just a symptom of those tensions between the two leaders. But here I really want to make a key point, which is that the relationship state to state between the United States and Colombia remains extremely strong, and day-to-day cooperation has continued throughout these political storms.
So now how worried would you say are people in Bogotá that tensions with the US could escalate at this point?
We're very relieved to see the phone call that took place last night. I think that that is an important step to de-escalate these tensions. I also, frankly, think that the U.S. Understands the moment that it's in. Colombia is about to enter an electoral cycle. In May of this year, Colombians will elect a new president. Now, Trump has already made clear that he would like to see a mandate holder who is more allied with him. And I think one of the concerns that we are looking out for in the coming months is how the U.S. might seek to influence the outcome of that vote, similar to the way that Donald Trump opined directly in Honduras's election just a few months ago.
To just add to that, you've already brought up the election. How are these tensions affecting President Petro's political standing at home?
Well, I think it's the effects are varied. First of all, I think that Petro believes that standing up to Trump and particularly making these rhetorical arguments against American policy in the region play well to his base. And we saw that in the protests with large numbers of people turning out in support of that sort of pushback to U.S. ambitions across the region. However, I think on the other hand, the U.S. relationship is fundamental to Colombia's economic and security portfolios. The United States is the largest destination for Colombian exports. This is by far the most important bilateral relationship for the country. And others, particularly in the opposition, have accused Petro of deeply mismanaging this very important relationship. Certainly, the United States is going to loom large in the vote going forward.
Mm-hmm. And now that President Trump has invited Petro to the White House, what will each side be looking to gain from that meeting?
I think that both sides are sort of looking to, first of all, lower the temperature a bit, and also probably to make key points about their own agendas. Petro, for example, has been very keen that he wants to continue the fight against drug trafficking organizations, but on terms that are much more similar to the way that this has been done for many years in the past, through interdictions, seizures, and not through violent military action. I think President Trump, on the other hand, and he said this to reporters who happened to be in the White House with him right after the call, it really believes that the U.S. military action in Venezuela is helping leaders in the region to sort of come on board with Washington's agenda.
Mm-hmm. That's Elizabeth Dickinson, Deputy Director for Latin America at International Crisis Group. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.